everyone, RogueGold here, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be fully diving into the new Retaliations mode that has been added with Year 7 Season 2 to the Division 2. Now I know we've already dove into a lot about this mode, there was PTS coverage, overviews about it in the lead up to the season. Now that it is here though, and in everybody's hands, I wanted to do one final guide, covering mechanics, clarifications on drop tables, percentages, gameplay tips, diving into the rewards, and that includes some new surprises that were not announced before the season launched. So, hopefully that sounds good and that you find this guide helpful. If you do, and you want to catch all of my future Division 2 coverage and content, then I would appreciate you clicking that subscribe button if you've not already. As we jump in, I have to give a major shout out and thank you to our channel members. Your support enables me to keep going and doing what I love doing on here, so thank you so much. Also, small final disclaimer as we dive in. If my voice sounds weird at all in this video, I have developed a wicked sore throat after the season launched yesterday, so I'm trying to take it easy and not strain it too much. Just wanted to let you know, but let's dive in. Alright, so as you may know, Retaliations are a new open world installation as of this season. You will find them on your map right next to the Bounties tab. This is available across DC, New York, and Brooklyn. Before you can go in and play them, however, you must trigger what is known as the agitation meter, and when you're on the Retaliation screen, you will see that there is a bar here, a meter for each faction. There are two ways that you can fill this up. For one, there is a daily project that awards you a 100% ready to go retaliation. This involves a very simple objective, something like kill 30 enemies, complete a bounty, etc. After you do that one daily project though, how can you then farm and repeat this? Well, playing any content associated with the faction you wish to fight in Retaliations will fill their meter. And as luck would have it, we have a very handy chart that outlines these percentages excellently. Now, I have to give a huge shout out to Virtuals, who is a fellow content creator here in the Division community. He took the time to share out these various Retaliations infographics on social media for people to use. So we're going to be looking at multiple of these charts throughout the video. They're very well made. I'm going to link you to the video in the description that he originally showed these off in. I highly encourage you to pay a visit over there, give him a like, say thanks for taking the time to make these. But here is that agitation meter chart. So as you will see, this outlines exactly what content offers what percentages on which difficulties. And as you look across this, that will vary from things as simple to NPC kills to different little activities, all the way up to strongholds. As far as what stands out to me on this list for content you might want to target, strongholds are of course notable for their 100% fill rate on heroic. As well, stuff like bounties and public executions are pretty good supplements at 30 and 19% respectively. But then of course your usual main missions and control points will give you plenty as well, so it is mostly up to you, but I think it's good to have this information. So once you max out one of these meters, you will hear Manny say a line, there will be a prompt that flashes on screen, and you can return to the map to begin the retaliation. Once you do, you will be loaded into the selected named zone's safe room or settlement, depending on where it is, and from there you must go and reclaim each of that zone's control points. However, there are a few caveats. While the retaliation is active, you cannot leave the named zone that you're within unless you want to go in and forfeit. You cannot fast travel within this mode. You'll see that while you're in here, there is a timer ticking down to your failure that is right below the radar. And then in general, there are a few extra mechanics and threats that await you within Retaliations. Out of all those things, let's first talk about the timer. Normally, when you begin a retaliation, you will have somewhere in the 7-minute 30-second range of time. And if this hits 0 at any point before you go and capture each control point, you will lose the mode and the run. Now, to avoid that from happening, this timer can be increased in 4 distinct ways. For one, killing any NPC that you come across within this mode will grant you 2 seconds each. You can complete maneuvers to give you some additional time. We'll cover those momentarily. You can defeat kill squads to give you even more time. Again, we'll talk about those. And then capturing one of the control points within the zone will give you the most amount of time over anything else. Let's take a moment to define some of those new terms and mechanics that I just mentioned. Firstly, maneuvers are simply little objectives that will pop up as you play. Once again, we have a very handy chart to take a look at, courtesy of Virtuals. What you'll see on screen right now is all of the possible maneuvers that you can get in Retaliations. And along with that, it also shows you how much time will be granted if you complete that objective. And then in the bottom right, if you're playing Retaliations with a group, you will see the scaled values for these. The reason why they're scaled down is that these objectives will appear individually for each different player. So it's less time individually, but more time total if everybody goes and completes it. So again, this is just a look at what you can possibly get as you play. Feel free to screenshot, memorize, whatever you'd like. Now on the other hand, we have kill squads. These are teams of 5 named enemies that can randomly spawn in as you play Retaliations. You can encounter up to 3 of these in one run, and they will appear at random times. That can be while you're in the transition period, running between control points. Sometimes they can spawn while you're at a control point itself. They have no bespoke mechanics to them. They are just a bunch of bosses that are set out to kill you. If you successfully defeat them and eliminate all 5, that will award you around 3 minutes and 30 seconds to the clock. Other than that, the control points that you will encounter within this mode work slightly differently than they do in the regular open world. They will have an easier initial clear wave, where you take out the enemies that are already defending it. Then, however, when you call for reinforcements, that will actually bring no friendly NPCs. It's just you here. And what you'll find is multiple waves of enemies and bosses that appear to try and retake the point. These can consist of unique enemy compositions. For example, you may run into an all-tank wave or an all-medic wave. So get ready to dig in for some firefights on the defense side. As I mentioned before, clearing each control point will give you the largest bump to the remaining time that you have. That's usually around 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And in general, you just want to make sure that you're quickly moving between control points, engaging with maneuvers and everything else that we went over, and that will ensure that you don't run out of time. So that should cover most of the mechanics of the Retaliations mode. It's not too complex, but there are some new things here. And to deal with these new challenges, let me get into a few small tips that I've got for you to make sure that you're going in and getting these done. Now, the number one question I anticipate getting is, what builds are you using in this gameplay, or what build should I use to clear Retaliations? As for the gameplay you will see in this video, I'm still doing some final testing on these as they're intended to pair well with the seasonal modifiers, and I want to make sure I'm achieving that goal. I do intend to have a video out breaking all of these down within the next 1 to 2 days, so stay tuned for that. Overall, though, building for this mode is not really rocket science. Depending on how you like to play, many of the staples that we're accustomed to in the Division 2 will work very well here within Retaliations, notably Striker, Negotiators, Hunter's Fury, a high-end Pestilence build, Determine and Hotshot, even the new Tipping Scales gear set. All of those things will work very well. This mode is going to throw a lot of enemies your way, so the key is to have enough damage to mow them all down. One tip I can definitely offer is to play to cover and try to keep some range in these engagements. Now, you might see me foregoing that advice in this gameplay, but if you're not careful, NPCs can very easily swarm and surround you. Reason being, there are multiple spawn points they're going to use. There are more waves than you're used to in a traditional control point. And in the open world, we're accustomed to friendlies at control points taking some of the heat off of us once we call in the reinforcements, but they are not present within this mode. That means that all of the aggro is going to be on you. Because of that, decoys can work very well if you have that skill. In general, you just want to play as safe as you can, while of course making sure that the timer doesn't run out. Reason being, though, is because death in this mode is weird. If you die, sometimes it will let you respawn for a time penalty, whereas sometimes it will just boot you out of the mode outright. And I've seen the same happen even if you run a revive hive. Sometimes it will get you, sometimes not. So overall, play at range, keep your eyes open, eliminate the enemies quickly. If you don't feel like you can quite handle heroic difficulty, I think that challenging is a good sweet spot for the lower difficulties. Reason being, it still offers you decent chances at the rewards, which we'll cover next. Also do note that any directives you have applied to your open world will be active within Retaliations, so if you do not want that added challenge, then be sure to turn those off. And as always, keep in mind that seasonal modifiers can be enabled or disabled for customized challenge. Alright, so now let's talk about the rewards, shall we? Because there is a decent bit of complexity here. For starters, this is an example of what the post-mode screen might look like for you when you successfully complete a retaliation. I've seen a lot of people express confusion over what this all is, so let's explain. The little boxy up arrow symbol at the top of the rewards list for each control point is actually your active modifier XP. Those can now be leveled up as of this season, and so you will gain XP for the modifier tied to whichever faction you're fighting. Then below that, you get to the retaliation specific materials. There is one for each faction, so in this case, I got crossed balaclavas for the Rikers. After that, you then get a bit of that faction's optimization materials, and then at the bottom, you get some bonuses for completing the mode. The ones that seem to be guaranteed, from my experience, is that if you complete a retaliation, you will get 1 exotic cache, 1 named item cache, and 1 of the broken SHD watch materials. The specific amount of faction materials you get seems to be a little bit random, and then you have a chance to receive exotic blueprints here, which is something we're going to touch on momentarily. So that's a breakdown of the actual rewards that you can get, But where do you go and use all of these materials at? Well, if you haven't yet this season, you're going to want to visit Anaya. She is the one that is next to the crafting bench in the boo, and you will see that she has a ton of new free blueprints to pick up. These are all tied to Retaliations, so be sure to grab them all. Now, as many of you likely know, because we talked about it a lot, Retaliations introduced exotic blueprints to the game for the first time. So if you go to the crafting table, you will find a new exotics tab at the bottom, and here you can see each of the available exotic blueprints all laid out by category and type. Now, the devs have provided us with a very useful chart to lay out exactly where these all can drop from. This is that chart right here on screen. As you can see, this tells you which faction can drop which blueprints. This allows you to target these a bit more selectively if there are certain exotics you're going after. You'll also see that while some drop from kill squads from that faction, others can only be gained as completion rewards for the mode. So again, feel free to screenshot this if needed. Note that the available exotics here include any exotic that is in the general pool. However, quest items and exclusive exotics are not included here. So we now know where these come from, but how likely are you to actually get them? Let us take a look at one final chart here from Virtuals. Here you can actually see the chances per difficulty for getting a blueprint upon defeating a kill squad, or if you earn the retaliation completion bonus. And what you'll see is that challenging and heroic rise well above the rest, those being at 90 and 95% odds respectively for kill squads. And this is part of why I mentioned in the tip section that challenging at minimum is recommended if you can handle it. So hopefully this helps explain where these blueprints come from and how likely you really are to get them. Once you do get the blueprint that you want, you can of course then find it within that tab at the crafting bench. This lets you view the required materials to craft, which are not too cheap. You'll need to invest credits, standard materials, optimization materials, 3 exotic components, as well as a bundle of those faction-specific retaliation materials that we looked at. Now, the final thing that I want to point out is that if you navigate to the very bottom tabs within this menu in the crafting bench, this is where you will find the conversion blueprints. So let's say, for example, that you play a lot of one faction's retaliation, but you end up needing materials to craft an exotic for a different faction. Well, you can use these blueprints here to convert that currency that you have a lot of to broken shade watches. This is like the universal material for the mode, and you can then spend those to receive a bundle of the desired faction's materials. So it's very interchangeable as to what you earn. Before you do that, however, let's make a note about the final tab at the very bottom of this list, which is called caches. Now, the first item on this list is the New York Kill Squad cache. This is for people who maybe don't own the DLCs, yet they still want those factions blueprints. What you can do is spend other retaliation factions materials to get broken shade watches. You can then convert those into the crossed balaclavas and burning ash, which are the Rikers and cleaners materials, and then you can use those to purchase this cache. The second item on this list, however, is reconstructed caches. Now this, as I mentioned in the intro, is entirely new. This was not advertised in the patch notes. You may recall that these caches are usually only available within the Descent mode, and each one of them gives you a named item as well as a blueprint for a named item. These can include blueprints for DZ exclusive named items, making them usually a very sought after reward in the game. So this seems to have been added as a good incentive for veteran players to engage with the mode. It requires 7 broken shade watches for you to buy, which of course will take you some time to get, but this now lets you say goodbye to Descent if you'd like. Well, my friends, that is the breakdown and should be absolutely everything you need to know about the Division 2's new Retaliations mode. I hope that this video was both informative and concise. If you have any remaining questions or confusions about this new mode, do let me know and I will try my very best to clear that all up. Beyond that though, I would love to know some of your guys' first impressions and thoughts about Retaliations. Do you think they're fun? Too easy? Too hard? What changes might you want to see made to them in the future? Let me know all of it. Would love to read through it. Stay tuned for more Year 7 Season 2 coverage coming to the channel very soon. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. RogueGold out.